We are trying to automate everything, and that creates this vanilla, terrible experience instead of building scalable processes that have moments of automation. And that's the future. All right, welcome episode number 19. Today's episode, we are going to talk about one of the pillars of the book and how it's relevant here in 2025. I teased this a little bit last episode, and I think that gave us some inspiration for today, which is the fourth C. We've got four of them, but I'll talk about the fourth one, which is consistent performance optimization. And I purposely put that in the book because I saw the slow optimization cycles that B2B sales has had for a very long time. And so today's episode is, are your sales methods dying a slow death, right? And, you know, for a lot of you out there, the ability in previous generations of sales, okay, in the 2000s and the 2010s, where, you know, consumers didn't have access to that much information. Most of the information they had to get from your sales team. People kind of came into the funnel at very similar places. You know, trends weren't changing that much in the type of technology people used. We're in a different world here, halfway through the 2020s, my friends. And so if your processes are not built for rapid optimization, you might be in trouble. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit today. I'm going to talk about what strategies need to go out the window. I'm going to double down on some of the topics from last week, and I'm going to get into some of the technologies and how we can think about these technologies helping us to do more things better, not just more things. And I think that's where I get kind of crazy sometimes with the sales methodologies I see that people are deploying. Is these sales methodologies are about doing more. It's about qualifying. And my friends, nobody wants to be qualified, right? Now, I want to be consulted. And if I'm not a right fit, that's fine. But I don't want to be qualified. I want someone who's here to listen and to have an open mind and get creative. I don't want someone here to qualify, okay? I don't think you do either. So we're going to jump into those topics. We're going to talk about maybe some of the methods you're using now, what you need to do to upgrade them, and some of the tech that you can use to maybe help you out a little bit in that. So stick around next probably 10, 12 minutes, depending on how much I ramble. And make sure if this is your first time tuning in to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share this with your team if you find value. But first, in every episode, we cover our DM question of the week. And you can have your question featured here. Make sure, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to just drop it into the comments. If you're watching on Instagram, TikTok, somewhere else, you're watching some snippets, make sure to come over, watch the full video, or just, drop a comment, and we're always checking those out. I'm checking those out as well, too. You can DM me on LinkedIn. So this week's DM question of the week, Ziggy, what do we have today?
My team is still using email blasts and generic follow-ups, right? Generic follow-ups. How do we move to hyper-personalized messaging without drastically increasing our workload?
Yeah, another one of the C's we talk about in the book is current go-to-market strategy, which is really about current outbound strategy. And it talks about this idea, and I teased this a little bit in the beginning too, about moving away from the concept of more things, more. So I think step one is, what's the goal? I want all of you to just pause for a second. What is the goal? The goal of doing these email blasts or generic follow-ups is what? Depending on where you're at in the process, there's probably a couple of goals you might have. Number one, your goal is to try to get a meeting with someone who you think is the right person. Everything you should do should be reverse engineered for that outcome. If I send 20 handwritten letters and it works, then guess what? Send 20 handwritten letters. If Johnny has to send 10 personalized videos, send 10 personalized videos. This is a data exercise. So we have to stop looking at ways to automate and do more crap that isn't working, and instead reverse engineer the outcome. If your goal is more later stage pipeline. I talked about this, I don't know if it was last episode, maybe it was episode 17. I think it was 17. I talked about this idea of digital engagement with Gen Z. And yeah, if you haven't checked that episode, go check that episode out. If you think about, my goal is to generate more deals at step 4. That's my goal, right? What does your experience look like to get there? Is it more questions? Is it qualifying, et cetera? Or is it about a better experience? And how can I reverse engineer that outcome? So if you're doing a lot of generic email blasts and generic follow-ups, you're just going through the motion. You're not focused on the goal. And I think too many sales reps and too many sales leaders are too focused on the activities that where the math doesn't work, right? If the math works, the math works. Jake sends 10 videos a day. He gets 2 meaningful conversations. He sets 4 meetings. I'm all for that type of math. But if the math doesn't work, if the math doesn't say X number of emails equals X number of whatever, and it's pretty uniform, then you got to throw the old math out and instead focus on what works. So for Jake, he needs to do this. And for all of you who are sellers out there, you need to know your own math. Don't sit around and wait for your RevOps team or your sales leader to be like, here's your conversion metrics. How are you going to get better if you don't know your conversion metrics? So my thought for my people in Atlanta here is you need to focus on reverse engineering the outcome. And I'll tell you, let me give you kind of a last little pro tip here. If you are a rep and you're wondering, Jake, yeah, this all sounds great, but my boss, blah, blah, blah. Here's what you're going to do to your boss. And I'm sure I've given this advice before, so I apologize in advance. But if you go to your boss and you say, look, Jake, I know you need me to hit 500 activities a week or 500 a month, whatever it is. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hit those numbers so you don't get in trouble or your boss's boss isn't saying, why isn't Jake doing his work? But what you're going to do is I want 15-20% of my time. I want to try this other strategy over here that I think is going to work. If I prove that strategy out over 45 days, I want to steal more time away from the generic activities and double or triple down here because I think I have a new way that we can all perform better and share this across the team. Does that work for you? Every boss will say yes because there's no sacrifice for them. Their boss's boss isn't going to come down on them, but you got to make it easy for them to say yes too. So very long answer to a very short question, but I hope that helps. Because the answer is you got to reverse engineer the outcome. So let's jump into sales trends, 2025 sales trends. I think this is the first time we've talked about trends so far this year on Innovative Seller. So again, I kind of tease this a little bit. We've talked about consistent performance optimization. I talked about that a lot in episode 18. So if you're somebody who's like, man, we got to get better faster, I would say definitely go check out episode 18. We'll link to it here. But what I really want to talk about here is just like real-time actions, right? So you think about, kind of looping things like, website data, your Google Analytics into your CRM or your Sixth Sense or, other intent signals. I think for a lot of people, we have to be able to act more dynamically. So, in the book, I talk about this kind of, performance optimization schedule. But for a lot of people, I want you to think about, what are we doing to interact more in the moment, more to the individual. And so one of the trends that I see for, making sure that your sales process, go-to-market process is modern, is up to date, is the ability to act and run different plays in real time, right? So like Drift, for example, shout out to the folks over at SalesLoft Drift. Slack and SalesLoft also have an integration too that's pretty cool. Drift can like look at, real key interactions people have had. Then it can like make some changes to those interactions and then, show this message here using AI. I know SalesLoft also integrates with Slack, right? So it's like, boom, real time. This thing happened, boom, we interact. And so for I think a lot of 2025, we have to be willing to move faster. These tools are no longer table stakes. If they make your team, and again, this is a lot of issue I see with these tools. They don't take your process from 0 to 100% better. That's not what sales is about. Sales is a game of inches. They might make, your outbound effectiveness or efficiency might now be 7% better. Well, 7%, if you're doing X million a year is a lot. Okay. And so for a lot of people, we've got to stop looking for all these home run ideas and instead think about like in our, our kind of current methodologies, are we using all the different features we could to be able to show up differently for each individual person, right? Can we react faster? Can we do things just slightly better? And so for me, those are some big ones, right? We've got lots of clients that are using these tools like them to just do a little bit more of that, call it real time, right? So, there's consistent performance optimization that you're looking at, on a monthly, quarterly basis, but then there's also real time. And so for all of you out there, I want you to think about how can I get X% faster? How can I get X% more accurate? Not 100%, maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 10%. And to do that, you have to have the data. And I'm telling you all, that is also a big issue I see is we're just not tracking things and getting that back to the field fast enough. Our sales ops or rev ops teams aren't built to give that feedback loop. So that for me is a big trend 2025. Now, what do I think needs to leave in 2025? People talk a lot about cold calling and, this, the ability to hyper-personalize or to, do more bulk outreach. So look, the ability to do more hyper-personalized outreach has never been easier. Before, if I wanted to do research, I had to go to Google, and I go to Google. Well, and then even before that, I did not have to do this, but people had like I don't even know what they did. Maybe they went to the library or something. But you go to Google, you search around, you click some links, blah blah blah. All of a sudden, it's 15 minutes later. Now with ChatGPT and custom GPTs in particular, and you all have heard me talk about this. So if you are not using these, please, for the love of God, go use these tools. And we'll put a link to like our set. We've got one called Discovery Call Prep. Discovery Call Prep to me is a perfect example. ChatGPT will do all the work for you. It literally, you hit Discovery Call Prep. It says, great, what's the name of the company? What's the job title? You literally give it a link. You tell it the job title. Here are trends in their industry. Here's what they're talking about. Here's what it does. Here's how it triangulates to what you do. And literally, I can do amazing personalization or prep in what used to take me 15 minutes in 2. And so there's really no excuse to not be personalized in your interactions. And that's what's got to go in 2025. With tools like, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, insert Gemini, there's no excuse to not do the research. And it's also a better quality. It's the first set of tools that are both let us do more of certain activities, but also it's a higher quality of activities. So you got to do that, right? You got tools like Clearbit. Shout out to Clearbit, man. I haven't talked to those guys in a long time. So shout out Clearbit if you're watching. They're doing a lot around intent data. Again, who's engaging with what? First-party intent data. I'm a big fan of first-party intent. People actually engaging with your stuff, not just someone from IBM's marketing department who might have clicked a white paper or something like that. Again, like think about, these AI tools, right? Intercom, I know, has integrated some of this stuff, right? Where they can literally see what someone's doing and then based on their experience, interact. I've talked about Path Factory. Shout out to my folks at Path Factory, right? They're using AI to provide that personalized experience in real time. And so I think the big approach that you hear, like hopefully here, is that there's no excuse to not be doing a level of personalization. And especially once the human gets in the loop, if you as the person are not doing something that is more personalized, or you've done your research, or to book the meeting, you've looked at what are trends. We've got a custom GPT called Help Me Book a Meeting With, and it'll tell you the trends for CFOs and industrial manufacturing for this size company that you can use to book a meeting with them, right? To show that you actually understand what's happening in their world and the trends in their life. And that's who people want to meet with. Executives want to meet with people that make them smarter. So that's something I want you all to think about. So for me, what's out in 2025 is generic. Is if you're doing generic, you need to ship that to marketing. Let marketing do more of this like generic nurturing. Although again, with today's content, again, I check out Path Factor if you haven't. I'll put a link in here. It's like the marketing team doesn't need to decide which piece of content gets shown to the person because the AI analyzes the person's behavior and then surfaces it for you. And so there's really no excuse for just bulk personalization. You look at B2C brands. B2C brands aren't sending out an email to 10,000 people. No way. They're they got boom, boom, boom. They got this segment. They're running, one company's running 18 different versions of TikTok ads with different groups and demographics, et cetera, to appeal to different, we have got to catch up in B2B. And so for me, if you are not adapting to this personalized real-time world, you're going to be in trouble. Right? So for those of you in sales, if you're a frontline seller, I want you to think about what this means for you. What are you doing to pay attention to this trend? What are you doing to make sure you're providing a personalized experience? Right? It all starts with the outcome, right? So what are you doing to get there? So that's my sales trends, right? Those are a big trend in for 2025, trend out for 2025. Again, hopefully if you've got some value there, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, please. Thank you. And share with your sales team. If your sales team is struggling to get meetings or they're struggling to get people to late stages, hopefully there's some really tactical things that you can do here to book more meetings. All right. Next up, we got tech trends. All right. And I'm going to kind of combine. I got a couple here. Just as some stuff around AI. I'm seeing these like autonomous sales platforms. Okay. And, what these things are supposed to do is like run the whole process for you, from lead generation and qualification to closing deals as well too. And a lot of this is like, look, we are going to there is a buyer today and that you probably don't realize that is ready to go fully autonomous. For certain purchases, B2B, I am that buyer. I don't want to talk to somebody. I'm like, I already use your competitor. I've already used your software before. We want to buy. Let me just go full, autonomous here. And again, I'll link to a couple of these tools to check out. Inside Sales is one that's adapted a little bit. Drift with a combo of Sales Lofts, trying to do some of those things as well too. But these platforms, what their goal is not to fully remove the human from the loop. And I think this is the big issue that I see around technology and AI with a lot of sales leaders out there. Is a lot of sales leaders are trying to find ways to automate everything versus build scalable processes that have moments of automation. All right, you can rewind that, listen to it again. We are trying to automate everything, and that creates this vanilla, terrible experience, right? Because we're also not using the tools the way that I told you should use the tools. Instead of building scalable processes that have moments of automation. And that's the future. So if you look at these sales platforms, what I want you to think about these sales, where you can chat with somebody, then I can maybe get a quote. Is where does the human come in the loop? At what point is someone starting to fall off where a human can come in and add value? Because like I said before, if the human's not adding value, people aren't going to want to talk to you either, right? So for a lot of people out there, I think my big kind of plea with a lot of these tools is stop looking for tools that are going to automate your LinkedIn outbound. Stop looking for tools that are going to automate, other types of customer interactions. Look for tools that automate the data logging crap so your salespeople don't have to do it. I'm all for automating there. But stop trying to build systems and processes where the salesperson or the people aren't like the final tweak. Again, like maybe there's some broad account coverage you want to do. Yeah, fine, whatever. But to me, there's this over-reliance on trying to create all like 100% automated, as opposed to saying, you know what, if my goal that I'm trying to achieve, the outcome is to generate a meeting, for example, how do I get all that data to where it needs to be? And then the person is empowered and trained on how to customize that little last mile, right? I'm trying to get late stage pipeline. I'm trying to upsell my current customers. What are the things that are happening behind the scenes, right, that I can automate to get it there? And then the human turns on the brain to get it the last mile. And so if you're a seller right now, I want you to think about your job. If you're just doing this, my friend, nobody needs you to push a button in 2 years. I'll just push a button myself. If I can get the data to the right place, I'm just going to use this basic customization anyway. What do I need you for? And so for a lot of teams out there, I'm all for some of these platforms that are going to automate a lot of the interaction. But what I want you to think about is, a couple of things. I talk about this concept called VEX in the book too, which is called vetted, educated, cold, and self-service. Every single one of you needs to have a VEX process. When someone's vetted, okay, great. They're going through this autonomous processes, blah, blah, blah. And then when does the person come in, right? Or maybe they're an S, they're self-service. So maybe they're fully automated. What about educated? Well, sales should come in here. What about cold? Okay, now sales starts at the beginning. So when you think about these autonomous sales platforms, I want you to move away from the concept of how do I automate everything to do more, and think about how do I generate more of the ideal outcome. Right. And so we'll end today's episode with exactly how we started it, from the DM question of the week. So again, for a lot of you, 2025 trends, if you want to make sure your sales method or your sales process does not die a slow death, you have to be able to bring back personalization. If you guys remember, before these tools came out, we're literally less than 10 years into these tools. Almost all sales interactions were personalized because these tools didn't exist. And guess what? Teams hit quota. Sure, teams miss quota too. Reps hit quota. And so we've kind of gone into this bizarro world where even though we know it's not working, in 2024 it didn't work, 2023 it started, 2022 didn't work. We got to stop trying to just hit send all. Like, it's not going to work. Like, people don't want to interact with that. So I'm confident in B2B sales. We understand this. We'll figure this out. But that's episode 19. Episode 19 is all about, I want you to start to think about in 2025, looking at all these processes I have, and then, where should the person get involved? How do I have the person turn their brain on here for this one? Or, hey, this person does want to self-guide. Great, let them self-guide, right? Because that's the future. The future to me is this idea of having multiple channels, multiple different ways to interact, using AI to interact dynamically with people to do levels of personalization. That's where it's at. So that's what I got, everybody. If you got value from the video, as usual, I will ask you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to check out, I think last week's last episode 18 will be a good one if you're trying to figure out how to budget time, in particular. As usual, if you aren't also subscribed to the AI-powered Seller podcast with myself and KD, where all we do is talk about AI, make sure to do that. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.